Welcome back. We were recording this, but our software froze. And how long were we recording for?
Or maybe 20 minutes.
Shit.
I know.
It was actually good conversation.
We were killing it, and we'll kill it again now.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, everyone, to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Simply Simple podcast. We are back. We have been workshopping this for a few weeks, and we're very excited to speak.
I feel like I need to repeat what I said the last time.
No, you don't. We can talk about something we'll be just fine. But yeah, we're back. We're at Bella Vista Studio. Thank you again for letting us use your space. It's a lovely area.
Good equipment.
Yes, if you're around, check it out. But we have a very interesting topic today, rethinking focus and productivity. But before we get into all of that, I just want to catch up with the listeners in terms of what's been happening over the past week or the past month since we've last recorded.
Well, I just wanted to say shout out to our friends, you know who you are, for asking us when the next episode will come out. Your support is not unnoticed. We are very grateful for your support, and makes us feel very purposeful with something fun that we're doing. And second, Dhruv, the zebra wall, people liked it. It may not be in the official setup, but I think at minimum, wow, this feels like deja vu. We should have at minimum pillows, zebra patterned pillows.
I do like zebra pillows. I do like animal prints in general. Maybe we can see what animals
Zazz things up.
Yeah. I was thinking like a tiger stripe or something. It'd be kind of cool to have in the background. But yes.
See, I'm smiling because I don't know about that.
Well, we have a lot of issues to work through. So
we're getting married. Well, this podcast episode is about productivity, Dhruv. You asked me a question. What was it again?
I was just saying, you've been out for a month or so.
Yes.
Since our last episode. What's kind of been happening? What's an update you can provide the audience?
Well, I've gone through the most busiest month of this year, and I don't know if I should be concerned because the year has only started. But given what's happening around the world, I think maybe it kind of lines up with how the month has been for me. It's been a very demanding month. I feel like I haven't had the time to properly rest. And then when I rest, I feel like I'm being lazy. So it kind of comes back down to the topic of today's conversation about productivity. But how's your month been, Dhruv?
I think it's been a pretty steady month. I think everything from it works with the productivity topic because I feel like I've done what I've needed to do.
Yeah.
So I'm a content person.
You're just cruising.
I wouldn't say I'm cruising. For those who might be watching this, I am at capacity. If anyone's asking,
do not send him more emails. I think it's just been that month. A few milestones. I'm very excited to share them in a later episode. I might post about it on Instagram.
Yeah, make sure you're following us.
I'm not pregnant. So we're good. But that will be cut out at Dhruv's editing.
Maybe not. I think it's important for the people to know that.
But onto a more serious note, Dhruv, let's talk about productivity because
it's a very productive way of starting the podcast, I must say.
Getting pregnant, absolutely.
No, as in like you're focusing right on productivity because that's the productive thing to do.
We have to go minute by minute. But look, let's talk a little bit about what we have experienced and what we continue to experience and notice and observe in society of the nature of productivity. And Dhruv, maybe you can open up the segment and tell us, is this a segment? Maybe it's an aspect.
I think it is. It could be a segment. I think like
Could
Apple
each question be a segment? That's interesting.
I think so. I think Apple Podcasts actually now separates podcasts into chapters. Automatically, it uses AI to like it looks at the transcript, AI, and then like characterizes the podcast into chapter headings.
You have to show me how to do that.
It's very fancy. Oh, you don't have to do anything. It does it automatically.
Yeah,
So,
I'll watch it do it.
so I'm gonna delegate the chapters to the AI gods at Apple.
Gorgeous.
So
gorgeous.
the nature of productivity. I mean, I think productivity is really just doing things that will advance the goals in your life. So if you're doing things that make you happier, make you more successful, whatever success means to you, makes you more money, whatever it is, it's a very personal thing. Everyone's got their own methods of measuring themselves up. And I think once productivity is really just a way to move you towards the things that you want to do, for good and for bad, as I'm sure we're going to talk about throughout this episode. I'd be curious to hear what you think about what productivity is.
I had your forest analogy. We'll get to it very soon. It's a good analogy. But productivity to me means, it means output, but it importantly means how you show up to something. And I think it's trying your best. And I think that productivity should not always be a measure of success. I think it can be a guiding light to your goals and to the direction you want to go in life. But I don't think that we should be glamorizing being productive all the time. I think it's okay to take a step back sometimes. And I think it's also important to have that rest. If you want to go to the cinemas, get yourself a big bucket of popcorn, you do that. Why not?
I love that. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about that in a lot more detail when we speak about perhaps the negative side of productivity.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what are the positive sides of productivity?
Of course. Well, I think I just mentioned that productivity can help guide you to your goals and perhaps take those steps to your longer term goals and direction in life. I think from the emotional aspect, I feel quite fulfilled and motivated when I'm able to say I've showed up, I've done what I needed to. You know, maybe there's one or two things that I haven't been able to do, but what matters is that I've done my best. And also taking into consideration of exhaustion. Like there's only so many hours in the workday and also so many hours that you have after work that, especially in the weekdays, I don't expect myself to be, going by the minute. And it does feel like that. And it's so okay. This last month has felt like that. But I think that the positives is that it can give you that overarching kind of direction or that pull that you need to put you on track to where you want to be.
Of course. And I think that's right. And I think productivity can be a really good tool, like I said, to get where you want. I think a lot of people do have very good advice on how to do things more effectively or do things in a better way. And the example that always comes to mind is those study YouTubers or those productivity people who... Pomodoro, exactly, right? They have their ideas that I think a lot of people can genuinely benefit from. And I think that's, really the positive side of it is when people can use these tips, use this mindset to really drive home whatever goals there might be. Some people might want to start a business, for example, and productivity can really be helpful in terms of finding both the motivation and the confidence to really go ahead and do things like that. So
that's a really kind of made me think in this moment that if someone, for example, is really shy at public speaking, then maybe for them productivity means, being able to go out and have a solo lunch to kind of make them a bit more comfortable in public and then take small steps. And that in itself is an overarching goal to, helping you public speak. Like I think productivity can be perceived in like different ways. And most importantly, it is a different meaning to everyone. I mean, for example, someone who wakes up at 4 a.m., goes and works out, walks their dog, feeds their fish, everything all before 9 a.m., makes it on the early train, whatever, compared to someone who wakes up at a later time. They still go into the office, but this morning is different in the sense that they're not rushing out the door with their breakfast in hand. They actually had a few minutes to spare to eat breakfast and have their coffee or matcha, we don't judge, from home. So I think that for them, productivity is something different to everyone. And it's not necessarily about what you can achieve in that amount of time. I think it really comes down to how you can show up to what's on your to-do list. And I also don't mean that from a like a self kind of standing position. Like I don't think that, or rather I think that productivity can also mean how you show up for other people. And a really kind of interesting example is during law school, I would be locked in my study trying to push out, tasks, essays, whatever. And I'd be so hyper fixated on the output that, my parents are a few meters away that I forget to say, maybe not forget, but I just don't prioritize saying hello or like, how are you? Where can I help? And I think that opens up broader conversations about the negatives of productivity and how you have this psychological belief that if you don't do anything, it's the end all be all to kind of your productivity mindset that you have at the time.
Of course.
All right. So from my understanding, I think we're on a mutual understanding or belief that productivity is unique to everyone. I do want to come to the question and ask you, do you think that productivity should be a measure of success? If not, if so, how do you think productivity should be measured?
It's a very good question for this episode. And
thank you.
I think you foreshadowed the trees analogy, and I think that will kind of hint at my answer here, which is that I think that productivity is good as, like I said before, a tool for success and however you define it, but it's got some limitations, and I think it's a really big blind spot in terms of how people apply productivity to their lives. And I think the traditional way of looking at life and looking at productivity is that philosophical. Everything's philosophy or relationships. Absolutely. On this episode, on this podcast, I should say.
Shout out to No Fish in the Sea. I'll keep plugging that episode in every episode moving forward.
Yes, there's a link here. If I'm doing that right, we'll see how it looks.
If I'm editing this for our shorts, that's going to look weird. So that's not making it.
Okay, so maybe it's there then, or there.
Or there. Editing Drew is going to have a blast.
But as I was saying, you have these compartments in your life, or you have these domains, or you have these various different buckets. And what I think conventional wisdom says is that if you can do well in all these buckets, there is no sacrifice needed. Everything, you can have everything at the same time. I think the danger of that is when there's compartments or those buckets, they actually intersect and overlap more than you might think that they do. So, for example, and I'm very guilty of this myself, and I have no regrets, is sleeping.
It sounded so sus the way that you said it. I'm very guilty.
I'm very naughty boy.
Well, I can pick up the Tim Tams.
I'm just, as people see, I'm a very naughty boy. I like sleeping.
Editing Drew, please zoom in when he said that.
The sleeping part?
No, the naughty part.
Okay, I'll zoom in on the naughtiness. I'll zoom in on your face, actually.
Don't do that. I don't have anything to cover me.
So for the audio only listeners, it is as awkward as you can imagine it.
Sorry, continue. Keep going with your... Did you say your forest analogy yet? You haven't.
No, I haven't.
Okay, continue.
Wow, we're really developing that. Maybe we should.
The audience needs to hear. I've heard. I've hyped this analogy up.
Now it's just hype is a dangerous instrument. But as I was saying, these things overlap. So sleep, right? Everyone loves sleep. A lot of people love sleep. I love sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So I think the issue is when you think that you can just sleep as much as you want without consequence. Yep. So you sleep your 8 hours a day. well, what do you lose out on? Okay, maybe you have really good health, really good sleep health, but maybe you miss out on the socializing part of your life because you have to go to bed at 9 or 10 and you can't stay out. And some people don't care, which is fine. But maybe your social life would be more developed if you sacrificed on sleep. And that's a trade-off that you have to make. And I think people consciously don't recognize that these trade-offs do exist. So when we talk about productivity, I think the advice people get is to how to maximize all these aspects. So your sleep, your health, your studying, but whatever it might be. I mean, interestingly, it's not your relationships. There's no productivity hack for relationships that I know of. If you do know, please drop a comment because I would love to be more productive in a relationship.
I love how it all draws back down to relationships. We're not your relationship gurus.
It's the Simply Simple podcast.
Absolutely.
We are relationship people.
It's a good point that you have, but continue, sorry.
Of course. I lost my train of thought a bit, but where I was going to, and the drum roll please, it is the forest, missing the forest from the trees. That is the grand analogy that we were going towards. And the reason is that you're focusing on all these little things. How do I improve my studying? How do I improve my sleep? How do I improve my health? And you're kind of missing the bigger point here, which is, what does my life mean? What is the purpose of life? What does success mean in life? And what are the things that I'm losing out on by focusing so hyperly on productivity, on these different areas? Is there anything I'm missing? And I think that's really kind of the questions we should be asking when we do these types of things, is what am I missing? Is there something that I should be aware of?
What is the bigger picture?
Yeah, and what's the sacrifice? Everything is a sacrifice, really, and it's just being comfortable with what you're sacrificing. It's a very personal decision.
I like that analogy, and it brings me back to my example of, not saying hi to my parents when I'm in the study because I'm just so fixated on my to-do list sometimes. And that opens up a broader conversation about when productivity can become toxic, when you're in such a hyper productivity mood. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it becomes an issue where, for example, you can't enjoy your social events because in the back of your mind you're like, I need to leave so I can do this, this and this. Like I still have this and this pending. And I personally have been absolutely guilty for being in that mindset. And honestly, it just destroys the moment of like you enjoying a night out or a lunch or whatever with your friends, family, etc. So I think, I really love that analogy, period. But actually, I'm reading a book right now, Dhruv. Have you read this book? It's called The Perfection Trap by Thomas Curran.
No, but it sounds very relevant to what we're talking about.
Yeah. So given that it's been quite a challenging and demanding month where, kind of felt like I've been pulled in so many directions, this book is actually interesting because it talks about productivity, and it also talks about the fact that you should never discount yourself for what you've already done. Like if you, at the end of the day, are just so focused on what you couldn't get around to, and that kind of makes you feel as though you can be better, or, you're not feeling good enough because you haven't accomplished X, Y, Z. It makes you kind of rethink your perspective on how you should approach life, because life is a guided curve. You're always learning. It's never a straight beeline to everything. But anyways, let's move on. It's all about productivity.
Well, it's a good point that you raise there, and I've read something that really hit home to me, and this kind of goes to the forest, the trees, your book, everything that we've talked about. It's the example of a father who is really into having a focus space for themselves. So, that's setting up a distraction-free zone. You might leave your phone behind. You might do all these things. And the idea is that I need to really focus to, type out my book or to get my work done. But this person has a kid, and the kid keeps on crying and keeps on bothering the father. And the father is getting a bit upset that the kid is intruding on his productive time.
This feels like a like a conversation I overheard in an elevator, but go on.
Of course, and I think what the takeaway or the insight is that should the father feel upset at being distracted, or is the distraction really a good thing in that
It's a reminder.
I don't know if it's a good thing, but it's a reminder
To be present.
to be present. You know, you have a kid, like how much does it matter that you're not crunching out 1,000 words a day on your book if you're with your kid? What is your real priority in life? What should you be upset about? What shouldn't you be upset about? And I think that's just an example that kind of really hits all this talk about productivity home to us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to say it. I overheard a conversation in an elevator a few months ago. I obviously don't know their names, but being kind of hearing that from the outset and also being an outsider as to what the actual scenario and situation was. Maybe there's details or context that I am missing, but very similar scenario. And it all comes down to the forest. Where are you missing the bigger picture? And in that kind of moment, are you prioritizing something so much that you forget about prioritizing something that's equally as important, if not more? I don't know if we've gone to question 3. Do people identify with productivity?
I don't think so. We haven't talked about that yet. I'll be curious to hear what you say, unless you want to direct it back to me.
I feel like I need to get Uno cards out.
Uno reverse.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I think I'm happy to break it. To break this question.
Break it down.
In front of the zebra wall. Hell no. Well, I think being in a position where I will be honest, I do associate my day with productivity, not in a crazy sense. I think I've become better. Everyone's going to zoom in.
For those audio listeners, I have a very skeptical look towards the camera right now.
I think I've gotten better. I think I was, okay, there's context. I think that balancing full-time work, law school, and wedding-related socials, I kind of felt like I had no choice but to really dim down on my to-do list. Because if I'm being honest with you, those were big things that I was balancing in my life. And if I fell behind on a task or two, the reality is, I mean, my weekends would be spent like working, if they're not, I mean, studying and socializing. So if I kind of fell behind on a task, I felt like I had to put more groundwork in the next day or the next weekend. And that would kind of cut into my time to see you and properly like have a conversation or hang out with you.
I think that's a good example of
Yeah.
where productivity can help, because you have things that you want to do,
Yeah.
but you need to kind of go through your work quicker
Yeah.
or more effectively so that you can bucket. I think that's a really good example of
Yeah.
how to use productivity well for your life.
Yeah. I think it really guides me into the overarching goal. And I know, as you mentioned, there is an opportunity cost. You know, sometimes there are these unconscious boundaries that, you know, we don't really see. Like, it's okay to sacrifice 1 or 2 hours of your sleep if it means having a really good conversation or just being in the moment with your friends and family. But yes, I think people do identify themselves with productivity because it makes them feel motivated. It makes them feel like there's some kind of purpose and feel content with their day to day. Do I feel like it's negative? I think it can be negative if you're, as I mentioned, if you're constantly hyperfixated on doing things to the point where you sacrifice yourself, you sacrifice the quality of what you're doing. There's a lot of kind of conversations to be had, especially in a society, and even maybe not even the personal culture, but the corporate culture where productivity is always going to be there.
Yeah, we're getting a danger zone here.
We are.
Corporate productivity. We'll stay silent.
In very general,
I'll stay
general
silent.
terms.
I'll
Swing
stay
it over
silent.
to you with the reverse card.
I think the question is, do people identify themselves with productivity? Of course, and I think there might be many reasons why, but I think it all kind of stems down to the fact that I think it feels good to feel like you're progressing. It's the idea of gamifying things.
Gamifying.
Gamifying, yes.
You were waiting for me to repeat that word, weren't you?
Well, I had a good inkling
Inkling.
that you would. So you would have seen gamifying in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I think a good example is like Duolingo. Have you used Duolingo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the language learning app where
There's
it's
another
got like
one.
streaks and it's got like
Yeah.
all these things to like make you like really feel like you're progressing in learning a language.
I think it's similar to the new the app called Pimsleur.
It's
that
too
came
Gen
out.
Z for me.
No, it's only because like their AdSense has been crazy.
Okay.
Anyways, continue. It's kind of like, yeah,
Okay.
Duolingo.
Advertising works, yes. So yes, gamifying. So it's this idea that progress, like constant progress, feels good. You want to feel like you're progressing, and really the easiest thing to progress on is like your to-do list.
Mm.
You know, oh yeah, I have like 5 items on my checkbox on my list. I'm going to check them all off. Wow, I feel so good. I'm such a amazing person. You know, I'm a genius, one would say.
The psychological belief.
Exactly, right? And that's
Mhm.
I think that's why people going very forest from the trees.
Swinging from trees at this point.
It's like I'm a little monkey, aren't I? But that's why people like games, for example.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Like you play a sport or you play a video game or a board game. You have a very clear goal, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, I need to, if it's a video game, we need to kill this boss, right? Or, you know, you do that, you feel good, you're progressing. Or you're playing sport, I need to throw a ball in the hoop. Like it's all very clear, it's very
Yeah.
defined. And I think productivity is kind of like that, where
Yeah.
it is clear and defined. And I think the interesting part about productivity, and I think I mentioned this before,
Yeah.
it could have been in our failed recording, is that there is no real productivity advice for things like friendships or relationships.
Yeah.
They just don't exist. They're because it's really hard to feel like you're progressing. Progressing is very subjective. There's no objective marker of, oh, we're now really good friends instead of good friends.
It means something different to everyone.
Exactly. And I think that's the real interesting part to me
Yeah.
is that productivity's got these own things that it can't measure.
Yeah.
But I think what makes it really popular is for what it does measure. But that's also why it can also be very, I think as we talked about, a bit dangerous or a bit misleading is
Yeah.
because you are, like you say, you're not taking into account the bigger picture necessarily.
Mm. I really I was quite skeptical of productivity being gamified. I mean, I know that there was a challenge on our banking app to save $1,000, and they made it feel so fun. There were kind of incentives as you go. I was skeptical, but that was also when I was in a more like I have to do my to-do list, like crazy kind of productivity mindset.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily.
No.
Like, I think saving money
think
is
it's
good.
fun.
I think it's fun. Yeah, I think the issue is that when you can't operate outside of that environment,
Yeah.
I think that's the dangerous part. Like, if you couldn't save
Yeah.
without things being gamified, then that's probably more of an issue than
Yeah.
just saving money because it is gamified.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think that's fine.
But it also comes down to like, you know, let's be real. Like during the day, we're always pushing things out. We're, you know, tending to calls, emails, etc. And sometimes at the end of the day, like even if it's, you know, I go back to that example of saving $1,000. And if it's just something simple as like having a little pop-up being like, hey, Fowles, did you know, pop in $20 to keep up with your streak? I'm like, oh, I don't want to lose my streak. I'll pop in $20. I think like, especially as an adult, like little things like that, it sounds so childish to say is actually quite fun because sometimes productivity can be associated with like being stern and sturdy and just progressing with your to-do list, that we take the fun out of our lives sometimes because we're just so focused on getting things done. Goes back to the analogy again, just focusing on the broader picture and how you show up to different aspects of your life.
I think that's right. And I think just to turn maybe what is a quite benign, yes, or a innocent example that you raised of saving. I mean, let's turn that around and let's go to Snapchat and streaks.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The days.
Yes, right. So on one view, it's very productive to send snaps to your friends with just like the blank page or the line on it, as we've done many times. That's quite productive.
Apologies for abruptly leaving Snapchat a few years ago and for breaking streaks. I'm sure you did the same.
I did the same.
Absolutely.
But in one view, that's very similar to what you're saying. You're keeping up with your streaks of communicating with your friends. But at the same time, this is kind of, again, what is the bigger picture here?
Yeah.
You're productive, but you're not really going anywhere at the same time. And I think that's the danger part of it. The banking part, I'm okay with it, but I think this is when it can get more toxic, is when it goes things like this.
I also think that it comes back down to productivity meaning something different at different ages. Like, you know, a few years ago, a Snapchat streak was so important. I'm like, I've maintained all my streaks for the day. But now I'm like, like, you know, at a different stage, like that depositing $20, for example, to maintain like a saver streak. Sure.
Oh no, it's okay. We all have like gorilla minds. I'm gonna. we all like, you know, we all
Punch the Monkey making a little debut here.
Sorry, yes. It's been a long time since we recorded. I don't even remember what happened to Punch the Monkey since then.
But really interesting conversations. I do want to draw it back down to your best productivity tips. So maybe two.
2 tips.
Maybe 3.
Maybe
1.
Spent half an hour just being like, don't be productive. And now I'm like, oh, but actually, here are some tips.
Well, no, your personal productivity tips, like what has worked for you in terms of getting things done and feeling motivated in doing them?
I do think the gamifying thing actually works.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea of progressing or feeling rewarded. So I think just writing down things and ticking them off. I think we use Trello, for example. I think Trello is a really good tool for that.
Sometimes a good pen and paper works.
Good pen and paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like whatever works, just being able to like mark things off. I think just that sense of completing something is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes to like breaking things down into like smaller micro goals as well.
Very important.
So if you have a goal of recording a podcast episode, you know, you might break that down a bit further and be like, well, I should write a script. We don't write scripts, but it's like write a script. I should book a venue. I should do all these little steps that get to the point of starting the podcast. So starting a podcast can be intimidating. But maybe if you break it out into like
bite-sized pieces.
Even if it's like 500 bite-sized pieces, it's still bite-sized. And
that was me with trust accounting the other week. It seemed scary.
Do you want to explain that to the audience?
I'm okay. I've been through the trauma of ledgers and balance sheets. I'm okay.
Yeah, well, if you need financial advice or trust accounting advice,
do not get them here. I just deposit $20 and gamify my savers.
You're ahead of 99% of people. So,
wow. Mr. ABS over here. I agree. I think that pen and paper's the way to go, breaking things down.
What would you suggest for the keen listener who obviously tunes into this for productivity advice?
I think I really like your tip on breaking things down. I've found personally that there are things that I can't just... It feels like a mountain, and sometimes it's okay to take a step back and say, okay, if I want to get B done, how do I get A done? Like, you know, it's a very progressive kind of mindset. For me, what's worked is taking a step back, and especially when there are periods where, you know, you're going to have a busy day. There's a lot of things that you need to do. Or maybe there's a point where you have been doing them in the day, your tasks or chores or whatever, and you feel overwhelmed. Just take a step back. I've found myself during the day just going out of and just going for a walk. That's really helped. And that kind of brings me into my conversation of prioritizing wellness. It's so easy to be fixated into pushing your to-do list, but it is so fine to also, take a step back, go to your Pilates session, go to the gym, take a walk, FaceTime your partner, your friend, family member. It makes such a difference. It adds, I think it's dopamine. Dopamine.
I think so, yes.
I heard the tip of like, if you're at a lull, just do 10 star jumps. And This is going to sound a little
Should
silly.
I get up now and do some star jumps?
It actually works. Okay, look, it depends because there are some days where you're like, look, I'm going to try it, but it's just not working. Anyways, deviating, yes. All of the above.
I think just to add a bonus third tip is to think about if you actually need to do something.
Yes.
Sometimes you make things up that you don't have to do. So
that is true. Like what is the point of doing this?
exactly. And maybe there is no point and you're just doing it because you think you should. So
like not in a pessimistic way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like like you might have some house admin that you're like, do I need to rearrange my shelf? Is that like necessary?
Or it could be like, does it have to be done now?
Exactly, yeah.
I think
that's your prioritization point.
Yes. But it also brings up your example of us using Trello. I have I think it's a list that's just literally titled hovering priorities. These are things that I want to get done, but there's no dire need of me doing them. And I think like just kind of having maybe like an invisible hovering priorities list, maybe write it down because at least, it's there at the forefront really, really helps. Shall we move on to the next question?
Yeah, the next chapter, Apple Podcast.
I kind of wanted to go into the question of, is productivity overrated?
I think we've kind of covered that.
Yeah.
I think we had something on lazy productivity, which I don't think we've talked about.
Absolutely. Well, I actually posed this question, and I kind of want to ask you first before I give my take on what is lazy productivity. Should it be associated negatively? And do you always have to be productive? Tongue twister.
Yes, and we've kind of gone on a bit of these themes throughout this episode, but there is this idea of lazy productivity where you have to be having a side hustle. Shout out to season 2, episode 1, where we talked about debunking myths.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere here. They'll be
there.
There you go. Where we talked about some of these myths of like you have to have a side hustle, for example. And I think the productivity mindset is about you have to do things that, are productive. And by productive, they mean like meaningful or like will achieve your financial goals or something like that. And I think that's one way of kind of looking at it. Yeah. But then there, as I kind of said earlier, not everything productive or not everything meaningful can be measured as productive. Like you can't be productive in your friendships. I mean, yeah, you can be productive in a quantitative sense. Oh, I'm going to see 5 people today. I'm going to go to this dinner and go to like 25, like you can be productive in that sense.
But like the social fatigue from that is crazy.
Right, yeah. But like the guts of the friendship, like what really matters, like you can't be productive in that. Yeah. And so I think there are these gaps in the productivity mindset. And for example, doing a hobby, whether that is lying down, whether that is reading a book, whether that is watching TV, you're doing something that maybe some people think it's okay. Others are like, well, you should be doing something that matters. Why are you doing that? Well, I think people kind of miss the point, right? Like this is, it's lazy because you're not like earning money. But at the same time, you kind of need time for yourself. You need time to relax, not only to be more productive, but just from a why do we even live? Why are we on this planet? Like we're not machines, right? We can't work 24/7. We need a break.
Time for you to write a book, Drew.
Of course, we'll call it Forest and Trees.
I like it.
And Bananas and Monkeys. We're workshopping this. But that's essentially, so I have no issues with lazy productivity. Yeah. The whole thing to me is a bit of a over-fixation. I think this is when we talked about productivity as an identity. And that's one of the issues, is seeing things as lazy when they probably are not as lazy as you think they are.
Yeah. I think it also comes back down to the question of what is productivity and what's not lazy in your eyes is perceived differently to another person who may witness you doing that. I have a very similar take with lazy productivity. To me, it means that you're not necessarily wanting to be productive in that moment, and you're also not wanting to not do something. You're kind of in that lingo of like both, doing both, but not really. So for example, it might be like, oh, I'm gonna read like 25 pages of my book and then I'm gonna go to the gym. And maybe you just end up going for a light walk. Maybe you just end up reading 3 pages. That's not you being lazy or you can't be bothered. You've showed up, you've made an attempt, and that's fine.
How much of this do you think is social pressure?
I think
Like if I said to you, I did nothing but watch TV all day,
yeah.
how much negatively would you judge me?
It's interesting because I would perceive that as like, damn. Now, like I've just hit that level of exhaustion right now where I'm like jealous. So it really depends. Look, I think that society pressures. There's like that. I'm going to use the word from the last episode. That innate pressure to be productive, to constantly do things, but I don't think that's right. I mean, I get, the whole idea of keeping businesses going, gears going, life going, but sometimes we forget to live in the moment. And of course, like maybe a few years ago, I would have perceived it negatively. But I also come from the perspective of I was in a different stage in my life where I kind of had to move and had to do things, but now it's a bit more chill.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's a negative thing. It's more just a general social comment.
Absolutely.
About, like if I went to work, for example, and someone said, how was your weekend? And what I said was, oh yeah, I just, played video games all weekend. Like, I feel like I'd be judged very harshly for that.
Of course.
And maybe I should, but like, is that what should happen? I don't know.
Now I'm getting fired up because if we had that weekend of playing Mario Karts, love that. But what bothers me is that sometimes what you do on the weekend kind of puts that kind of comparison against others as to how productive you used your time off.
That's right, yes.
But I also think that people just forget that the ratio against the productivity that you had in the week. And maybe you just need a day where you're just laying down and playing Mario Kart.
That's a great idea. Now I really want to play Mario Kart.
Me too. All right. So lazy productivity shouldn't be associated negatively. And I guess both of us agree that you don't always have to be productive. Period.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
All right, Dhruv. I'm scrolling up and down these questions because now that 7, what is a productivity style and what is your productivity style?
God, this goes back to, wow, I have no idea. I never thought of like a productivity style.
Me neither.
My style is to overthink maybe.
And keep thinking.
Yeah. I think this goes back to my tip. Is it worth doing? That's my style, thinking. Smart productivity. I'll think of a more buzzier catchword maybe at another time, but nothing.
Productivity style. I don't think I can generalize my style. I can give you tips, but I can't really, I don't have like a one way is the right way.
That's true. It's like your walking style. Everyone walks differently. You can be productive differently too.
I can say, like, for example, I forgot who I got this from, but maybe you might remember because I think it was from a book that we've both read, where if there's like a little window of time. So, for example, if I'm walking from to my garage, and in that little window of time, maybe I can send a message like to a friend being like, hey, thinking of you, hope you're doing well. I think that kind of feeds into my productivity style as like a tip. I don't think it's like, I don't necessarily think it's a style, but I just think it's maybe how I approach productivity.
I'll say you're a hustler style.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good style. I think it's people. Yeah, that's
I'm flattered. Am I marrying you? Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm marrying a hustler.
I can say that to you too.
Oh, well, there's our style apparently, hustler.
Yeah, productivity style. I don't know if I like the word style.
True.
Approach. But
I think that's pretty much it
Do you have any kind of questions you want to go to? I think I was looking at question 15 about when product. Yes, there are 15 questions. We always make the mistake of packing on too much.
But I think I liked it. It's a flowed discussion
It
where
gives us options.
It does, but I'm pretty happy with what we covered. I think it's been around 45 minutes. So
wow, that flew by.
So I think that's a good time to put a neat bow over this episode and
yes,
let the listeners listen to what we've said so far and make the judgment for themselves.
Well, I hope you got more of an intel into the brain of Dhruv and Fauzia. Productivity is certainly not a one size fits all. It's how you show up in your day-to-day. Use it as a guiding light to your overarching goals and strategy in life. And don't forget the forest analogy. That's really important.
Yes, if there's one thing you can take away, it's trees and forests. But
monkeys and bananas.
Exactly. And tigers and zebras. Well, we should really talk about animals maybe.
I feel like going to a zoo.
Literally.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like it's one of those topics where you can just keep on talking and talking, and then you can get into the granulars of that point in time, what worked for us, what didn't work for us. But really excited to kind of have more conversations very similar to this.
Of course. And if any of the audience wants to listen to something or have an idea, please feel free to send them to us either personally or through our official Instagram and YouTube pages.
Yes.
And I think we have a link tree. We have a bunch of stuff there.
I think I'm going to update that.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
And don't go on the link tree. Don't judge me now.
I think by the time this episode goes up, it might be updated.
You know, if I update it, just know that's lazy productivity. It's something I don't want to do and it's not a priority, but I'll kind of do it.
Hey, that's a good example of something that doesn't actually need to be done. And probably not. We probably don't have to update it.
Priorities.
Yeah, so you check it out. And if it's not updated, that's totally fine because it doesn't really matter.
All right, well, stay safe, guys. I smell food, so I'm so hungry.
Yeah, we're doing this without food in our stomachs, so I'm sure it's fine.
It's the weather for warm. Yeah, I'm making myself hungry. Anyway, see you on the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back in around a month. Yes, for episode 3, and we'll be workshopping that. We'll use all the productivity tips to really make sure we deliver some great content for you all. I'm being told to shut up, so I will shut up. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.